So because you guys really seem to enjoy my video on how to kill Deadpool and Wolverine, I decided to take another stab at this and have another discussion about how different heroes could be killed, with this video focusing on Franklin Richards. Now, I have done a video on Franklin before, and he's also featured prominently in my videos on Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four. So if you want to know more about his history, you can always check out those videos. But for now, we'll take a quick look at what he's capable of and what makes him so hard to kill. So as most people know, Franklin Richards is the son of Reed Richards and Susan Storm, and has actually been around in comics since 1968, despite the fact that he's most frequently depicted as a young boy. While Franklin is a mutant with inherent telepathy and telekinesis, his ability to warp reality hails from the fact that his birth proved difficult and potentially fatal for Susan. Traveling to the negative zone in order to harness an object called the Cosmic Control Rod, Franklin was imbued with its energies, allowing for a natural birth without concern for Susan's well-being. That said, what makes Franklin so hard to kill? Well, for starters, because of his exposure to the Cosmic Control Rod, Franklin's powers allow him to warp reality by manipulating cosmic energies, meaning that any thought, desire, or whim that pops into Franklin's head can become real. As a result, if there's a person that he does not want to exist anymore, he can make that happen. On the other hand, if there's a person that dies and he wants them to come back to life, he can make that happen. And what's interesting to note about this ability is that the upper limits of his power have not been determined in comics up to this point. But here's what we do know. Franklin is so powerful that he can send people to parallel universes and bring them back, and has even created a pocket universe. Furthermore, he can neutralize the powers of other superhumans, something he was capable of showing when he constructed a box that negated the destructive quality of Black Bolt's voice so that he could talk normally, and he's even able to turn energy blasts from a celestial into a harmless stream of flowers, inspiring a bit of fear and a lot of concern in the minds of universal entities like Galactus and Mephisto. Now, in addition to his reality warping powers, telepathy, and telekinesis, Franklin Richards also has precognition, which allows him to see the most probable future, but only extends a few days into the future. He also possesses the ability to project energy blasts and project himself onto the astral plane, and Franklin's also shown himself able to resist both mental and physical attacks, as he's able to repel the psychic attack of a celestial, as well as withstand one of the celestial's energy blasts, although this durability likely stems from Franklin's reality manipulation instead of some latent durability that he possesses through a separate power. In addition to this, it's also been suggested that Franklin is immortal, as he and Galactus contemplate that when the universe has been destroyed and reformed in billions of years, the two of them would be around to observe it. Having said that, how do you kill someone that's this powerful? Well, there have actually been a couple of instances where Franklin dies in the comics. One of these examples occurs in the X-Men event Days of Future Past, which centered on an alternate history where an adult version of Franklin is killed by a blast from an Omega Sentinel. However, because that's an alternate version of Franklin and we don't know if his powers in that future have progressed to the level they have in the main Marvel timeline, the only option we have here is to basically table that possibility and focus on his current version. Now, as we stated earlier, Franklin's power is pretty much on the same level as the Celestials, and so it stands to reason that any of the cosmic entities in the Marvel Universe that are more powerful than the Celestials would be able to kill Franklin Richards, and this would include entities like the One Above All, the Beyonders, the Fulcrum, the Molecule Man Owen Reese, and the Living Tribunal. But because we're talking about how Franklin can be killed by non-multiversal threats, things actually become a little trickier. Since Franklin is able to warp reality, attacks from even the most powerful enemies would prove ineffective. If Franklin is shot, for example, he can make the bullet, the gun, or even the shooter vanish from existence. If someone tries to drown him, he can bend reality to make the water disappear, or he can make himself develop the ability to breathe underwater. Now, a possible way to work around this is to kill Franklin instantly so that he doesn't know it's coming and cannot bend reality to cause his killer to vanish out of existence or make himself invulnerable in any form or fashion. However, this entire possibility is negated because of the fact that he's a telepath. With his telepathy, the second someone thinks about killing him, he immediately knows about it. The offset here, though, is that he would have to make the decision to read their mind, and maybe he has no reason to suspect that they're plotting his demise. Or maybe we're talking about an individual who's a stronger telepath than Franklin, someone like Charles or Quentin Quire, or maybe we're talking about someone that's resistant to telepathy, such as Magneto or Juggernaut, or even someone who doesn't technically have a mind to read like Ultron or the Vision. While these individuals could strike quickly enough that Franklin could not anticipate their attack, either through telepathy or observation, and warp reality in a way to render their attack futile, it also needs to be stressed here that although Franklin can make himself himself invulnerable to harm through his reality warping ability. In his natural form, he has all the weaknesses of a normal human being, and so if someone were to take him by surprise and kill him before he realized what was happening, it is theoretically possible that this could be successful. However, this is not a surefire way to kill Franklin due to his precognitive abilities. Since Franklin can see the most probable future before it occurs, even if he cannot perceive an attack as it happens through telepathy, he can probably see it coming days before it happens and plan accordingly to thwart it. With this in mind, it may seem as if killing Franklin Richards is nearly completely impossible, but all of these difficulties stem from Franklin's ability to warp reality, which we cannot forget is a mutant power. This is important because there have been a few different ways in Marvel Comics that we have seen mutant powers negated in one form or another. One of the ways is through the inhibitor collar, which we actually see in the Days of Future Past timeline mentioned earlier. These collars are placed around the necks of mutants to keep them from accessing their mutant powers, and while it's true that Days of Future Past is distinct from the main Marvel timeline, it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility that one of the greater minds in the Marvel Universe, maybe even Reed Richards himself, could come up with a similar or even identical invention. Now, if someone was able to place one of these devices on Franklin, it would suppress his mutant power to warp reality and make him susceptible to any attack. In addition to an inhibitor device, Franklin's mutant powers can also be dampened psychically. This is evidenced when Franklin, as a child, advances his age to adulthood and adopted the moniker of Avatar. The issue with this, though, is that even though Franklin's physical age was increased, his emotional and psychological maturity remained on the level of a small child. Because of this, Franklin realized that he wasn't mature enough to control his powers, and so he transforms himself back to a child and places psychic dampeners in his own mind that will prevent him from using his own abilities until he reaches an age where he can be trusted to control his powers effectively. Now, the reason why I point this out is that it gives us another way to counteract Franklin's mutant abilities, and what this means is that if someone is a telepath or has access to telepathy, they could probably use their psychic powers to place these dampeners in Franklin's mind once again, making him vulnerable to virtually any physical attack. Now, while that last option is kind of stretching things, the final way to get around Franklin's immense power is to actually go through another mutant named Leech. Now, Leech is a pretty obscure character in the X-Men series, but he was a member of the underground group of mutants called the Morlocks, and later he was a member of the Future Foundation alongside Franklin Richards. But Leech's mutant power is to negate the powers of anyone within 10 yards of him, no matter if their powers are mutant abilities, magical, extraterrestrial, or anything else. The way this works is that Leech is able to shut down pathways in the person's brain and prevent them from accessing their powers. And so if someone could convince Leech to depower Franklin, we would basically arrive back at the other same scenarios where Franklin is a normal person and could be killed by virtually anything. But with that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and if you guys are interested in seeing more videos like this, make sure you drop a like and hit the sub button, but also post a comment down below. Tell me what characters from Marvel or DC that you guys would be interested in seeing a video on in terms of how they could be killed, if they could even be killed at all. But with that being said, I will catch you guys later. Peace.
Should move on and try and forget, but this is not